Imagine buying bare land in Alaska and building your own farm from the ground up. Imagine raising cows and chickens there and growing virtually all your own food. Imagine doing this whilst also being a mum to 3 youngsters, 2 of whom are baby twins, and having a partner who works a job away from home. Today, Andrea talks to Amanda Callahan, the lady who's doing just that. Hear her share how her farm developed, how she manages it, the chores, and her young family, and lots about the nourishing food she feeds her children.
Welcome to the Ancestral Kitchen Podcast with Allison, a European town dweller in central Italy, and Andrea, living on a newly created family farm in Northwest Washington State, USA. Pull up a chair at the table and join us as we talk about eating, cooking, and living with ancient ancestral food wisdom in a modern world kitchen.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited to be interviewing my friend, and you're such an inspiration to me, Amanda. But her name is Amanda, and I have so many questions for you, Amanda. I mean, we voice memo each other about 100 times a day, but
yeah.
So welcome to the podcast, Amanda.
Thanks. It's really fun to be here.
Yeah.
It's the first for me, so see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I'm already dropping things, so that's a great start. Allison isn't here because we would be working with a lot of time zones at that point. So she's going to listen to us on replay. So Amanda, the first thing we always ask, just for the listener to know, me and Amanda have I don't know, how many drinks do we have between the two of us?
Yeah.
We're chugging hot tea.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you, Amanda, what's the last thing you ate before we started recording?
So I just had breakfast, and I made an egg and cheese sandwich that I grilled and pressed on cast iron pan.
What?
With
hold on.
Yeah,
you put it on a pan and put a pan on top?
No, actually, I just got this, one of those grill pans, the Le Creuset ones with the griddle
the little
on top.
Thing?
Yeah, I just got one for $40 from one of my milk customers. She was getting rid of it, and I was like, heck yes, I will buy that.
Heck yes, I will.
And then she even gave me the heavy cast iron press that you stick on top that has the handle, the log.
Like the bacon press situation?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's awesome.
So I just fried a couple of duck eggs and then put them on with some, I just made chev. So with some raw chev, and then also I broke into some cheddar that I made and I put that on there. And then I just grilled it. And so it was all melty and delicious, and put raw butter on it, and and I had a glass of raw milk with it. I'm really didn't plan this, but I'm totally scoring and hitting all the marks for this meal right now. I'm I don't even know what it. Yeah. I know.
Wait, is the chef? Is that goat? That has to be goat. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I made it from cow's milk though, but I did look it up, and there's another name for cows, and I can't remember what it is now. But there's a different name for soft cow's cheese, but it's the same. Almost? I don't know, but I make it the same way, and it's kind of like cream cheese, basically.
Oh, well,
but
it doesn't hurt my feelings at all.
I know,
just so everybody knows,
it's really easy.
Amanda has kids. I have kids. We're recording in late morning. I usually record with Allison at 6:00 in the morning or earlier, and so you may or may not hear some noise in the background. Everybody's trying to be quiet, but we all know how that goes. Mm-hmm. So, Amanda, can you tell me a little bit about your, people listening can go check out your Instagram, but tell us about you, your farm, what you guys are doing out there.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
did you
so we're in
build?
home.
How long have you been there?
Yeah, we're in Homer, Alaska, and we actually just bought 40 acres of raw, which is undeveloped land. People call it treed land, I guess, in some places. But 40 acres of land in 2020. And so we had just decided to start over because we had already built a small farm from nothing. Like we started with raw land prior to that. Yeah, and we'd been there for like 5 years. And yeah, we just decided we wanted to expand. And so 2020 came and we decided that we were doing this. And so we moved into a fifth wheel on our property. Ashton put the road in and everything, and then we just parked it. And I think that was in April. And so we did that, and we've just been here since, like expanding and developing it. It's been a lot of work, and it's been quite the journey. That summer was pretty wild. This is like a lot of big things happened that year.
Well, maybe you should tell people how many kids you had during that time.
So yeah, so I was pregnant when we decided to move, and we were planning. I had a home birth with my first baby, and so I was planning another home birth, and so it was just me and my 2-year-old at the time in the trailer, and Ashton was commercial fishing in Kodiak, so we also commercial fish in the summer times. So he took our boat and was in Kodiak, and then our boat sank that summer. Yeah, like a couple months into the season. Yeah, it was really heartbreaking because we were doing really well. Yeah, we were doing really well. He was doing a great job, and we just like put so much into that boat because he built it basically the way he wanted. I mean, he made a bunch of custom changes to it, like stretched it, widened it. He like redid all the hydraulics. Anyways, not to get into it, but he put a lot into it, and finally had it dialed in. And then he was fishing one day and was just really weighted down. He was loaded with fish, and so he was sitting lower in the water, and he got pulled into a tide rip, and the waves were just crashing over the stern. And so he thought that they were going to be okay for a bit, and then he opened the engine room and it was completely flooded. And he told me that he just turned and looked at his crew and he's like, "Well, you guys ready to bail?" And they were like, "What?" Because they didn't believe him. And then he said one of his deckhands went to run in the cabin to grab his stuff, and he was like, "No!" He's like, "Do not go in the cabin." And he said within like a minute of him saying that, or 30 seconds of him saying that the boat started to roll. And so then they jumped out onto, like when you sail, you always have a skiff. Yeah, you always have a skiff with you. So they jumped into the skiff, and they were trying to cut. Ashton was trying to cut the skiff free, which, oh, by the way, was our brand new skiff that we just built.
Oh my gosh.
And he couldn't cut it free because all he could reach was chain. And so then the skiff started to sink with the boat, and then a guy that was fishing nearby came and picked him up. So it was like they were just in a pocket of really bad current. And so there was boats around. So luckily, like nobody went into the water and they got picked up. But yeah, I was in the trailer in the fifth wheel, and I got a call from the Coast Guard, and they were like, "Are you the owner of the Honda Yo?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, his EPIRB is going off," which is like a Coast Guard device that alerts them if it's underwater. And I was just like, knowing my husband, I was like, okay, well, he probably like broke it and it flung into the water, or like he's just like pretty, I don't know. Anyways. And then I found out like, nope, the boat actually sank. I was just like, so that was pretty intense. Yeah. And then he came home, and then we just got to work building our shop apartment that we were going to live in. Mm-hmm. And then at 32 weeks, I found out I was having twins and not just one baby.
Surprise.
Yeah. And then they were both breech. So that was a whole situation because I did not want to go to the hospital. It was like the height of COVID, and I was just not a fan of, my first was a home birth, and I just really wanted another home birth. And so I like scrambled to come up with a new plan, and I had a provider that was willing to support me to have a home birth of breech twins.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so he was on his way, and then my water broke too early.
Yeah.
Like, it broke a day before he was supposed to be coming up. And he's like, maybe you can just hold on. And I was like, no, these babies are coming now. But I was very fortunate because I did have the hospital policy was no breech births. It was like a C-section only policy. But I did have an OB doctor that like supported me. And she was just like, I mean, if you come in pushing, it'll be too late, kind of like hint, hint. And she's like, and I'll be there. And I just like kind of went over like, please, like I didn't want her touching the babies, and I just wanted to like have them as less intervention as possible. And I ended up having them both breech and didn't have any drugs or no interventions were necessary. They were both really healthy. And yeah, it was pretty cool because all the people, because I had to be in the OR, which is unpleasant, but you know, I take what I can get.
Not a real homey atmosphere in there.
Yeah. But all the people afterwards, the providers, I don't know, there must have been like 16 people in there. And then there was like people watching through the window. I was just like, come on.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because they're like, oh my gosh, this girl's gonna like kill herself having breech babies. But
Good gravy.
But afterwards, like the environment and the energy was like really tense when I arrived, and people were not friendly. They were not kind. They were unhappy that I didn't want drugs. I was like literally holding back babies, and they're like, do you want morphine? I was like, no, dude, like why?
Wow.
So
you just didn't fit the bill. The standard.
I know. And it wasn't like I wasn't as manageable because I wasn't going to just be like, okay, yeah, whatever you guys want, whatever makes you guys most comfortable.
An ungovernable mother? How can we have that?
I know. But afterwards, everybody was like, oh man, I can't believe you did that. You just had 2 and breech babies and you're superwoman. And I was just like, okay, I mean, it's like can be done. But but it was cool because I think it removed a little bit of the fear in our community around it, like in our small hospital setting. Yeah, and like all the nurses that I had were like super pumped for me, and they're like, "We're so glad that you did that and you stood your ground." And so it was cool. What I didn't get, I feel like in the lower 48, maybe at some hospitals or in a bigger hospital, people would have been like, "You are so lucky you didn't die." Like, you know, so at least I didn't get that reaction, and it was like people being supportive of like I'm so glad that you like stood up for yourself and for your babies. So that was really nice.
That's awesome. For the European listeners, when she says the lower 48, there's 48. 48 of our states that are connected, and then there's Hawaii and Alaska that are just off on themselves. So
yeah. So I guess that has nothing to do with my farm.
That does. So. It has everything to do with your farm. It has everything to do with it. You know, it's part of why you guys are doing what you're doing. And to think that, I mean, I must have encountered you not long after you got that farm, right? Because we got our property in April 2020 also. So same time. And I feel like we started talking about it somewhere around 2020, right?
Yeah, I remember, I was just thinking the other day that I remember walking around and taking videos of like the root cellar we were building and like all the greenhouse and sending them to you. And you were like, those are so cool. Yeah. Yeah, that was really cool.
That was awesome. And your husband also works full time, like mine does too. So
yeah,
that means you and I both do a lot of the day-to-day stuff that happens out here. So yeah, very pioneer of you guys, especially since your boat sank. That just, you know, are you a pioneer if you didn't like lose something enormous like that?
I know, right? I know. I feel so bad for him. He misses it, but
yeah, he does. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. It's like his passion. He really wants to get back into it, but maybe, I don't know. I'm happy that he's around when the kids are small, to be honest, as much as he's bummed. But yeah, he works building houses full time, and he works like a lot. Yeah. He builds, I don't know, he's really fast and just like, he's probably just really tired of like all the stuff he's doing. But yeah, we have a greenhouse, and we have it's a timber frame greenhouse that he built, think last year, and he plumbed it. He did like a normal foundation, and then we plumbed it with tubes for like a heated floor, so we can heat up the soil. So that's pretty fun. But right now,
how do you heat the water in the pipes? Is it like from like running through compost or something, or
no, right now we have it hooked up to a diesel boiler, but we want to get a wood burning one because diesel, it's like that would be really expensive.
Totally.
So we ran it this last spring to get the soil thawed. And we were just kind of like seeing how well it was going to work, and we were playing around with it, but we haven't really run it since then. I might try this next spring and see what it does, but
yeah,
it's just nice to have a greenhouse because I've never had a greenhouse before. In Alaska, you kind of like, you kind of have to have something.
You gotta have something. Your season is so short.
I know.
What critters do you have on the property?
So we have 2 dairy cows and a beef cow, and we have an Angus beef cow, and then we have a Highland bull, and we have 2 heifers right now, and we had a Jersey bull, but we just butchered him. So we should have 3 calves every year. And then we raise them mostly just for meat, because one of my dairy cows is a Jersey Dexter cross. So she throws some decent cows, like for meat wise. And then my other dairy cow is a little Jersey. She's a small producer, but I really like her because she's not cranking out 6 gallons a day or more. She gives me, I think her peak was 3 gallons a day, which is like perfect. Because that's still so much.
Yeah.
Really? How big is yours?
I have no idea.
Because mine's pretty small. I think she has smaller genetics for whatever reason, but I thought yours looked pretty big.
She's tall. Yeah, she's pretty tall. I would say that, like, do you call it withers on a cow? Like when you stand, I don't know, same as on a horse. Like when I stand by her back shoulder, or back, her withers probably comes up to my shoulder. Seems pretty tall to me. Maybe she's shorter.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's probably about right.
Yeah, she's good sized. And do you have any birds? Chickens or whatever?
Yeah, so we raise meat chickens every year, and then I have a turkey and, like, I don't know, 17 laying hens right now, but they're this new heritage breed, which I can't even tell you what they are. I was just thinking about that. I was like, what are those? I can't remember. I got them from somebody who bred them here locally, and I was looking for a decent cross that would give me eggs, and then when they were done giving me eggs would be decent size for butchering.
Yeah.
And I really they look really nice. They're big and plump, and they're super healthy looking, but I've been fermenting their food with milk and whey, and so I don't know if that has contributed, but their feathers are super soft.
I think it is contributing.
Man, these chickens.
When you and I were comparing feed for when we both did Freedom Rangers, your birds are going through less feed because of the milk. Like there's a lot of protein in that.
Yeah.
And then when you
don't have to give them water. That was like the best part, is they did not go through water as fast, and I hate filling the water.
I know, me too. I don't know why it's such a tedium, but these birds will go through water, and you're probably like us, like everybody has all these cool watering gadgets that they hook up to hoses and stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, but what if you're still hauling water by hand with a bucket?
Yeah, that's what I do. I go bucket it from the pond.
Yeah.
That's how I do.
Every little bit that you're not hauling makes a difference. And then, do you have a dog? You have a dog? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a standard poodle named Loki. I want to get a livestock dog at some point, but I just don't really want to deal with a puppy right now.
Maybe when I come to Alaska, I can bring you some.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So you had... Were you gonna say something?
Oh, I was gonna say, and then we just put in hay fields this year, and so next year we'll probably won't be haying it. We'll just cut it and let it die back on itself for nutrition. And then the next year, hopefully we'll be able to put up our own hay. We don't really want a ton of cows. We're just trying to be sustainable for ourselves.
Right.
So I think we have an acre or 2 acres of hay fields.
You get a lot of
I'm not positive. Yeah, so if you do, I think our idea was to hay the first cutting and then let them graze the second. So then they can we'll rotate them and let them fertilize it and do their thing. But my husband's like, I spent so much time putting in that hay fields. He's like, I don't want cows on it, and this is my runway for my airplane.
Yeah, is that what he's using for the runway? Is the hay field?
Yeah, he uses it for his powered parachute right now, but he's got plans of getting a small airplane in the future, and so that's the main reason that he wanted to put it in, was that. And I'm like the side bonus of like, I want to feed my cows.
There's that too. You guys, he does hunting too, right? Right. So you guys supplement with that.
Yeah, so we got a moose this year, actually right on our property.
Nice.
And so that was nice. But yeah, he likes to go on long hunts, like out of service across what we call across Catchmack Bay. He'll go like goat hunting over there and stuff like that. But
goat hunting?
Yeah, he'll
like
go.
Wild goats.
Yeah, but you have to have tags and all that. So
of course,
depends on if he draws one. But he usually would go across the inlet for a couple of weeks, across Cook Inlet. And yeah, he just kind of hangs out over there and has some crazy stories when he comes back. But yeah, he's pretty good. So we usually get something every year.
So would you say that like between hunting, raising produce, raising feed for livestock and raising livestock, what percentage of what hits your plate in a week would you say probably comes from your own productivity?
I would say 90% to, awesome. I mean, unless you're not counting grain, because I buy grain to mill for my bread. But usually when we eat,
but you don't eat. Yeah, it's not a huge percentage of your food. So
no, usually, yeah. So usually when we eat, it's usually, honestly, lately it's just been whatever meat dish, and then I'll do fermented vegetables of some sort because it's easy. It's just like really fast, like fry up a steak and then put some sauerkraut with it, and then a piece of sourdough bread or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, so I would say that's actually crazy. I've never thought about it, but yeah, I guess we're close to about probably 90% now. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe not all year long. But I definitely never buy meat at the store except for bacon. I do buy bacon because we don't have our own pigs or anything, and I haven't spent any energy sourcing.
So
I know, right? So I have to. I find like the cleanest. We used to have Cooney coons, and they're just like I don't know. We probably just haven't figured out the best way to grow them. I've heard that they're really amazing. I don't know if it's because we have a short season here. They don't do well, but they are really slow growing, and then they tend to just have a lot of lard. So they're more of like a lard pig, which I'm fine with. But I mean, the pork chops on them were like so tiny. So what we ended up doing is we ended up just taking them and having them bandsawed in half, and then we would just like smoke a quarter at a time.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Allison and I were reading, when we were reading Chewing the Fat, and then when I read Clark Rice, The Candleford, so two books about raising, their own pigs, or 2 books where they raise their own pigs. They both basically said that like you raise the pig for the lard, and like there's some meat, but that wasn't really what they were going for.
Oh, really?
They're raising it for the fat because that's your maximum calories right there,
And you could get so much, like as opposed to rendering tallow or beef fat.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you end up with a whole bunch, but you could get a ton of lard to set you up for like the year.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So I want to know when, I know not every day goes as we plan, but on your, I'll use the word typical day. Maybe I'll say like ideal day on the way you like your days to go. How does your day go? You've got twins. They were, oh my gosh, watching you doing chores all last winter. That was crazy. So you're doing chores and it's dark. So tell me about how your day looks doing all the chores and the cooking and things with 3 littles.
So we get up and then I just have them fed. I used to do the milking before they woke up, so I would go milk cows at like 6 and then come in and do breakfast and everything, and then we would move on with our day. But I was just like dreading it, and I was just, I don't know, it was becoming this thing where my alarm would go off and I was like, oh, I have to go straight to milking cows right now.
Right.
And so then I was just like, instead of burning out, why don't I just change the time and bring the kids with me, and it's not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
So now we have breakfast, and then I get them all dressed up, and I eat. Well, the twins are 2 now, so I just let them walk around, and they come into the barn with me, and they're like in and out, and they go outside and play and whatever. And then Lila is 4, so she likes to help, and she's interested in milking the cow now and stuff like that. But when they were younger, I would just, like last winter, I would just bundle them up and put them in the stroller. I had a double stroller, and I would just push them through the snow and then push them into the barn, and they would just hang out and watch. And then Lila would just kind of play around and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you just kind of gotta do it. But
yeah, you didn't really have any options.
It's fun.
But it was pretty insane watching you take him out through all the snow, like in so many layers of clothing and stuff.
Yeah, like in a blizzard at night. Yes. That was fun.
What a good one. What a time.
But I'm really thankful that I have a barn now, though. I used to milk outside, and this is the first time I've had a barn.
How would you milk outside in Alaska? I'm not understanding that.
Ashton built me a stanchion that had like a little roof over it, but it didn't have any walls or anything. So if it was windy or cold, it was nice because I got to watch the sunrise, and so I kind of missed that. But it was definitely harder.
When does the sun come up for you? We'll say like December, around the like 22nd, right, when it gets so dark.
It probably gets light around 8 or 9, but I think at its peak of like winter when we don't get a lot of sun, I think the sun barely comes up over the mountains for a few hours a day. So the sun probably comes above the mountains around 10. Okay, that could be off, but and then it goes back down behind the mountains probably around 3, and then it gets dark around 5.
Okay.
So
I'm curious, is that hard to cope with? Like mentally, does it get wearing? Or do you have strategies?
I feel like it's harder to get up in the morning when it's really dark. And then for whatever reason, January and February really hit me hard because it's just like, it's finally, the lack of sunlight has finally caught up to me. And I tend to hit like a wall of depression and anxiety and all that in there, which I'm trying to deal with ahead of time.
Get ahead of. Yeah, I would say the same over here. I always feel like January and February is just I mean, there's no festivals, there's no holidays, nice big holidays to look forward to. I always used to say, why couldn't we have Christmas at the end of January, so at least you had that much time to look forward to it.
I know. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it gets to
yeah.
Do you love oats? Want to try your hand at a traditional Scottish oat fermentation? Suam's is just that. It was made in Scotland for centuries and will give you both a creamy, easy to digest porridge and a tangy probiotic drink. My video course, Suans, the Scottish Oat Ferment, over at the Fermentation School, will guide you through everything you need to know to create these two ancestral foods in your own kitchen, no matter what equipment you have. Head to ancestralkitchen.com/Suans, ancestralkitchen.com/Suans, SOWANS, or click the link in the show notes to get a 10% discount automatically applied.
So you have 3 little kids, you raise a lot of food. I want to talk about feeding kids for a little bit. So first off, just tell me some of the meals or plates that you guys like. Like, do you typically eat the egg and cheese situation you talked about or something, or just throw down a couple things that people might want to hear about?
Yeah, we typically will eat, like I said, just like a protein meat of some sort and vegetables, usually fermented lately. It's usually sauerkraut, or I have a bunch of fermented pickles.
Oh, yum.
Or something like that. So we eat a lot of steak, which I used to feel weird about, but I'm realizing that that's not true.
Why did you feel weird about it?
Because I had this like idea that we shouldn't be eating red meat every day.
Oh.
And I was like, yeah. And I remember Ashton being like, it's fine. Like we can eat. And I was always like on his case, like you can't eat red meat every day. And then now I'm like, well, we can. And that's awesome because we have a lot of it.
We can and we may. We will. We do
can
and
we will.
Yes. So that sounds awesome. So steak, some fermented veg. I'm loving this.
Yeah. And then I like to do soups a lot. So I'll make broth. If like I roast a chicken, then I'll make a chicken soup the next day with it.
Yeah.
And then like if I don't, like yesterday I had no idea what I was gonna make for dinner, and I looked in my refrigerator and I had a bunch of broth meat stock that I had made, and then I had just harvested pumpkins, and so I made a pumpkin soup, I guess, with ginger and then I added pork kidneys to it for effect.
Yum. Like chunks?
Yeah, but it was actually really good.
Blended or like a stew?
Oh, I pureed it all. Yeah, I pureed it, and then I think I added some coconut milk, and it was a little bit spicy. And then I added the sautéed kidney and bacon, and then topped it with cheese.
So you left
like
the
fresh
meat
cheese.
in chunks.
Yep, I've pureed it and then sautéed the meat and then added it. I don't know why. I should have just cooked the meat in the soup, but
I don't know.
Some reason,
this sounds really good because when you saute meat, you get all those different flavors.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking. So I sautéed it first and then threw it in there, and then just so that there was something else and not just vegetables happening.
Yeah.
So I'll make soup a lot, and I guess I'm getting pretty crafty with like, what are we gonna have for dinner, and just looking in the refrigerator and figuring things out. So make a lot of stews, but yeah, it's usually just kind of what I have on hand. And a lot of times I'm like, oh, I forgot to take meat out. Like, what am I gonna make? And I'm learning that organs thaw out super fast. So
why is that? Because there's such a high percentage of water in them?
I don't know, but liver and kidneys thaw out super fast. I'm sure heart doesn't as much, but I had pork hearts, and those are small, so they thawed out. And then chicken hearts, they thaw out really fast.
Yeah.
So I've been making that too. Yeah, so that's been pretty handy.
The beef heart that I made this past week, I think 2 days to thaw.
It did?
Well, I wasn't.
Dang.
I took it out with a bunch of other pieces of meat and just threw it in a cooler with no lid on it and set it on the table. And like I checked 2 days later, I'm like, it's still frozen.
Oh.
So why are you not just getting why not, how do I say this? Why not just go to the grocery store and get cases of Pop-Tarts and boxes of cereal and things that we know kids love.
Uh-huh.
Why are you cooking kidneys for breakfast and raising beef cows and things like that?
I actually don't know really how it started because I did not grow up on a farm or anything. My parents both came from that background, but it was never really a part of our life at all. My mom canned, but we'd like go to the farms and she would pick a bunch of stuff or buy a bunch of stuff and she would do bulk canning. But she wouldn't do it consistently every year. It was like she would just get a wild hair and she'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna can a bunch this year." And she did garden, but other than that, there was no animals or anything like that. And I don't know. We bought our first property, and then I ended up with a dairy cow, and then it just kind of spiraled from there. And then the more that I learned, the more I wanted to. I think I actually said this to you once. I was like, I wonder where I'm going to find like where I settle. And I stopped being like, nope, I don't want to do that anymore. Nope, I'm going to start doing this. And so it just keeps growing. And then after I had the twins, Charlotte, my girl twin, she was having an aversion to when I drank dairy, when I drank raw milk, and I was milking a cow at the time. And I was just like, well, that's not going to fly. Like,
This doesn't work.
yeah. And I think around that time, I actually discovered Weston A. Price. I was looking for, I don't know, I commented somewhere about something about probiotics, and this girl on Instagram messaged me and she like recommended Smidge probiotics, and then she said, you should look into Weston A. Price if you haven't. And so then I did, and I was like, oh, this is great. I want to do this. And I looked up like all the requirements to follow this diet, like what they did. And I was like, oh, we're already doing all this. And so I was like super pumped.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, only thing we're not doing is cod liver oil and organ meats. And so then I added those things in. But anyways, so that was kind of a tangent. But we started GAPS for the twins. And so then from there, my like knowledge just grew. And then seeing it firsthand heal my daughter from reflux was pretty powerful. And yeah, I've just learned a lot, and I learned a lot through reading that book and just seeing how sick everybody is nowadays, like kids dealing with illnesses and food allergies everywhere. And just what I learned through reading the GAPS book, I was like, yeah, why would I give my kid any of that stuff? Like if I have a choice not to. And then thankfully we were already on this path, and then all this stuff happened with COVID, and now it's becoming like a kind of a real scenario where we might need to start figuring some of this out better for ourselves. And it's just nice to know where your food comes from, because everything's so, I don't know, money's just like ruined everything, and
It's so
people
obscured,
are just,
all the sources and the reasons and the things.
and you can't trust anything anymore. It's like, okay, what does organic even mean now? And yeah, everything's packaged in plastic, and so like that's another thing I'm trying to minimize, but it's like almost impossible to get rid of it. I mean, it is impossible, let's be real. There's no way to get rid of it in your life. So like those kinds of things, I don't know, we've just decided that this is kind of a priority for us. And I feel like as a mom, I have a strong conviction of that, setting my kids up to succeed and setting them up to not have a life of maybe illness or dealing with a dairy intolerance, if I can prevent it, which I'm so thankful that I came across GAPS and did this for my daughter, because she was healed probably within 6 months.
Yeah.
She was able to have, like, she couldn't have anything. She couldn't have ghee. She couldn't have.
Yeah. I remember it was awful for you.
Yeah. And it was really stressful.
Yeah.
I was just like, because I was used to having such a healthy first, like Lila was so healthy and never had any issues. She didn't even have a cold. I remember when she was like 3, she was like, something's coming out of my nose. And like, she didn't know what a runny nose was. I mean, she's had runny noses, but like, not enough to the point where she remembered and was realizing like, I
Right.
need to go blow my nose. And so then I have these twins that were not as durable, I guess. I was like,
They live in
they
Alaska,
weren't as
though.
hardy. I was just like, yeah. Anyways, I'm really glad I did it because from what I've learned in my research, that the longer it goes, like the harder it's going to be to heal it. I mean, it might
Absolutely.
heal on its own.
Right.
It could. Yeah, and I've also learned that
Keep going.
people say, oh, they'll probably just grow out of it, or they grew out of it. And I was like, I don't think it's growing out. I think it's their body probably healing or adapting in some way, or maybe like hiding that so it shows up later in life worse. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I've heard, I'm trying to remember who said this, but that I think it was when I was reading about gaps somewhere, and they said a healthy body and healthy digestive system should be able to handle pretty much anything.
yeah.
Not toxins per se, synthetic man-made things, but if you have a gazillion allergies, then the idea is you're not a broken thing, but something needs to be corrected. And it's so interesting because we just have this idea, oh, I'm allergic to whatever, which obviously that is very much reality when somebody's allergic to something. But nobody really opens a conversation about let's heal that, which is crazy.
I know, everybody just thinks it's like how you are.
And
that's a
I'm not
bummer.
necessarily even saying that like everything can be healed. I'm just saying it's not even put on the table. It's just, well, I did this strip test on your back, and now you have to avoid avocados and rice forever. You know, go eat a
Yeah,
pocket.
I know. It's really
Weird.
It's really interesting.
And the other thing that
or be on medication.
Yeah, that's sad. But that's just the idea of, you know, having customers for life.
Yep. That's another topic.
Yeah, another day. When you said that you discovered Weston A. Price and knowing what you were already eating, I think we were talking at this time even, and you were already pretty much doing everything. That is one of the things I love about ancestral food is wherever you are in the world, you could do it because it's all literally something you can grow yourself. None of it requires store-bought things. And I think we make it complicated when we're like, how do I make a sprouted, organic, freshly ground, fermented sourdough Pop-Tart? You know, how do I make that at home? And it's like, yeah, but that's not really necessary. Like, sure, if you really want to recreate that experience, there's probably a way to kind of make it fit the bill. But it's more like what you said. We have a protein, we have some fermented veg. I had some eggs and cheese. We made a stew. We ate that for 3 days.
Yeah.
That's more of it. More
yeah,
simple,
and
really.
being on gaps is not, I don't feel like it's sustainable if you're going to be bending over backwards to make these special crackers.
No,
and
like all those fancy paleo diet things.
Yeah.
And you're just like, how?
Like, why?
Like, I get if you were doing gaps at the time if you got married and you wanted to just make a cake of some version. You know what I mean? I see that. But like for the everyday, it just makes it unsustainable.
Yeah, I made a cake for the twins' first birthday.
Yeah.
That was like gaps appropriate. But yeah, it's just a lot of effort, and then crackers just get like pounded so fast, so then it's gone. And then
this is the only fast food you can have.
Yeah, and so I just realized that we're gonna have to adapt the way we were eating.
Yeah.
Or I was,
that's
anyways.
Totally.
My family didn't.
That's such a good point. We have to adapt the way we're eating, because you think, oh, I can't have seed oils. I need to have more fats, and my grains need to be sprouted and fermented, and you know, maybe even preferably fresh ground. So then you think, oh my gosh, how am I going to make all the food I like that? I was like, well, you might not.
You might. Yeah. Or you just have to realize you can't eat bread.
I think that's
anymore.
where we look back at our ancestors and we're like, how did they do it? But they ate more of a monophagous diet. They didn't have diverse things from all over the globe, like avocados and pineapples and bananas and steak at one meal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's true.
Righto. So this is something you and I started talking about on Instagram the other day, and I just wanted to like stop memoing you back and forth and call you on the phone and be like, can we just talk about this, please? But talking about teaching your kids to love and understand the principles of the way we're eating so that they don't ideally grow up and just instantly say, well, thank God I'm out of mom's house now. I'm just gonna have
Yeah.
cornflakes. Oh my gosh. By the way, I don't know if you've seen on Azure, they have this like Barbara's or something organic cornflakes. So I got some of those. Adelaide didn't know what they were. So she was like, may I please have some more of the snowflakes?
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Good for you.
It's adorable.
She doesn't know.
I was like, oh, of course you can. It was fun though. But
yeah.
how do we do that? Like, I'm seriously asking you, like, how do we do that?
I don't know.
I think about it like indoctrination a little bit. Like
we're indoctrinating them into our way of like
like intentionally
how we raise them,
like actively propagandizing them, but telling them why I'm doing it. Like, well, this they're seeing this is better for the animal. How do you feel? How do we feel? And not using like poverty mindset language to say, well, that's gonna make you fat or that's gonna make you sick or whatever, but just saying, doesn't this make us feel so good? Doesn't this make us strong? Trying to teach them to love. But what are your thoughts on that? I want to know.
Well, with Lila, with my 4-year-old, I try and tell her about the benefits that it's doing for her body. Like the other day, she was talking about Charlotte being so pretty, and I had given her some broth. Charlotte was drinking broth, and Lila had a cup too. And I was like, well, Lila, I was like, broth is really good for your skin. And she's like, it is. And then she just like starts drinking her broth. Yeah. But, no, I mean, I just try and when there's an opportunity to inform her about like what the food does for her body, like just playfully saying like broth is actually really good for your skin. And, the other day she was like trying to see in the dark and I was like, liver really helps you see in the dark. And she's like, it does?
That's why cats eat it.
Yeah, which I think that's probably common. I think a lot of people use that tactic with their kids, but I don't know. Everybody says not to have like stressful meal times and not to like force your kids and just offer them what you're having and they can choose to eat it or not. And that's all their choices. So in our house, what we're having is what we're having.
I know we literally don't have people say, oh, like you said, let them eat what you're eating or, don't make 7 different meals. I'm like, I literally couldn't. This is what we have. And I'm not soaking, sprouting or thawing something else. Like I don't have time.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of what we do. And then I'm just trying to teach her about it. And then she asked me about things in the store and I'm trying to be, graceful with how I explain those things because she's starting to say, oh, why does that person's mom give them this? And why are they eating chips? To someone else.
My mom said that if you hate your kids, then you feed them this. And you're like,
I'm like, no, that's not what I said. So we were actually at the store and she saw a little boy having some chips. His grandma gave him some chips or something. And she was like, she said something about like why he was getting chips. And I was like, that person knows what's best for their child in that moment. And I know what's best for my child. And I choose different things for you. And honestly, truly, I don't know the scenario. Maybe that kid eats great at home and that mom or grandma was having a rough go and was like, have some chips.
Yeah,
like, I need to not freak out on you right now. And if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. Like, we don't know the whole picture. And so I don't want to teach her, to immediately just judge people based on that kind of thing. So I'm trying to balance that.
Yeah.
So it's just really hard being a mom and trying to figure out, how do I not ruin them?
How do I not give you a complex? How do I not give you the same disorders that I had? How do I
Yeah.
how do I
Well,
not
and
teach you to idolize something that shouldn't be an idol?
yeah, and so with gaps, it's been tough because I was so strict with the twins, and then I kind of like fell into this like no more processed food, no more this, no more that, and it was starting to cause tension because Ashton would take Lila, and if I didn't have my act together, I had no snack to send her with, and she would come home and tell me all the stuff she had, and I was like, why are you doing this? Like, wait till I bring her home and I can feed her or whatever. And I don't know, we just started realizing that it was just becoming a thing. And the whole point of gaps isn't to be super rigid your whole life. It's to heal what you need to heal, and then you can have, like, for the most part, you want to eat well. But the point is that you can have like those things and you're not going to have a crazy reaction to it, or
because you have the cast iron gut.
Yeah,
you can
and so
eat the poisonous berry by accident and it'll pass through you.
yeah,
Ideally,
so
survival.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't.
The freaking out on or saying, well, that grandma gave him chips because she's a bad grandma, or how could you possibly have eaten that when you were out, is where it, like, I don't know why I think of food in turn, like in religion terms, but like that's where it becomes a cult. And instead of the devotion and piety of loving something and saying, well, I love this so much that I eat it, and that makes me feel so unwell that I avoid it. Like, that's like food piety,
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing is I don't want. So I've been realizing I'm kind of coming out of that, and also like postpartum hormones did not help,
OMG.
and like
Our
everything else that was.
postpartum hormones like doubled with twins. I mean, get less sleep and.
I don't know. They're two, and I feel like I'm still dealing with it. So
yeah. And what season were they born in? Like summer,
October.
Oh my gosh! So
They're
going into
in
the
fall.
winter. Oh, that's
yeah.
That's wild.
So I think I'm kind of like coming out of and looking back on. I don't want Lila to learn, or I don't want my kids to learn, and I don't want to focus so much on what we're eating that's becoming, like you said, an idol.
Right.
And we're putting our food up on this pedestal, like I have to only eat this and I have to eat this way and I can't have any of that because like I want to be the strongest, and like we're not going to live forever. And
what?
We're not going to live forever, and I don't want I don't want to be teaching my daughter that our physical bodies are above like fellowship or sharing a meal with somebody,
spiritual.
Even if it's not right.
I see that.
And yeah, and so when I've been thinking a bit about like if when my kids grow up and they leave the house, if they're not going to eat like this or whatever, honestly, I'm like, it's not the end of the world. I would be much more happy if they were just good human beings and they had kind hearts and, we're able to be kind to people, because we're here to like serve. We're not here to serve ourselves. We're here to like share God's love and to serve each other. We're not living for ourselves. Well, we're not supposed to be. And so I feel like if you are going to go to somebody's house with like a Tupperware of food, because you're so hung up on like, what are they going to be serving me? And you're so hung up on, I have to eat this way just because, I don't know, maybe if it's for health reasons, then that's one thing. Like if you're going through some healing or whatever, then that's completely different. But if you're just like really hung up on your diet that you can't share a meal with somebody and it makes them uncomfortable, like they don't want to invite you over because they don't know how to cook for you and that kind of thing, then I feel like it's kind of defeating the purpose.
It costs you in the end. Well, food is very much a social thing for humans. We're a lot like cows.
Yeah.
And I mean, me and Allison talked about this, I don't remember when, on some episode, I don't know if it was Patreon episode or regular main podcast feed, but how companion means with bread, like the person you break bread with
Mm-hmm.
is your companion. And
Mm-hmm.
we, like, a recognized disorder is not being able to eat in front of people or with people, you know. We're just kind of made to eat with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So I guess my at home I'll feed my children a certain way. And then I'm just trying to let go of the rest. Like I'll do the best that I can. But I mean I say this and I still struggle with it. Like I
right,
still
I know,
cringe.
me too, I know.
And I'm like, oh,
You
I'm
think
doing
you're
all
fine
this
with
hard
it until
work.
somebody actually offers in something and you're like, actually that does.
Well, I guess I would say things like candy and things that are unnecessary, I have no problem saying like, no, my kid
Totally.
can't have that.
Yeah.
But like a meal that's not maybe, what I would make or something, I'm not going to say,
Sour
oh,
Patch
no,
Kids,
she can't
M&Ms,
because
methamphetamines, stuff like that. No, but
yeah.
really, Allison and I were talking about how when somebody was saying to her, I don't remember exactly what it was, something about, how she was cooking specifically foods for her and um Rob and Gabe when they were um in England, and then she said people kind of, I don't know if people were saying something or if she just sort of felt like, they wondered why she was being so picky. But she was like, I guess I'm just picky or whatever. And I was like, well, I don't know. Everybody has a line. Like they have a line too. You might say, yeah, we literally have Sour Patch Kids in a bowl with Pepsi poured over the top for breakfast every day. But then if you offer their kid cocaine, they're going to be like, stop. And don't think that I'm comparing cocaine and sugar
Yeah.
because of the whole molecular thing. I'm not. I'm just saying, like, they have a line too. And you'll hit it at some point. Maybe it's different than yours or farther down than yours. But where do you feel like that? Remember we were trying to hash this out the other day on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, where is that line for you? I always think, oh yeah, I'm pretty casual about it. We eat everything like you said at home, and then when I go out, but then I go out and somebody's like, have a Twinkie, and I'm like, I can't. Like, we can't. So then I find I do have a line. I just didn't. I just forget sometimes that those things are out there.
Yeah, I would say my line is probably those kinds of things, like snacks and unnecessary filler
That's
foods.
a good category to.
But
like if somebody made you a burger, meat from the grocery store, and like a store-bought bun, are you gonna eat it or are you gonna be like,
no, I would eat it. Just because I wouldn't be kind, and like comes back to the whole point of like, we're here to love each other. We're not here to like turn our nose up at what somebody else is offering us. We're just be thankful and grateful and like, and share in that fellowship. And I don't think our bodies are so weak that we can't handle,
yeah. And if you can't,
like
then you'll know,
and
and then you'll come back next time and it'll be like, well, as it happens, I had diarrhea for 2 days, so I can't eat that. So I brought my Tupperware. Yeah. I feel like the more, correct me if I'm wrong from your perspective, but I feel like observing you and also knowing with myself this, the more firmly rooted and confident and comfortable and in a good place you are with your own food, the easier it is to say that. Because
the easier it is to say that you would eat it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I feel like the easier to say, yeah, I'm okay with allowing the rules to be bent every once in a while, because I know that for the most part we're getting what we need. And the other good thing, I guess, is that I don't know if this is the same up in Alaska, but down here it certainly is. The more time you spend in the community like this, the majority of people's houses we go through on a frequent basis, they pretty much eat the same way, similar. So it's not like I'm
Yeah.
faced with that question a lot.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was going to say is most people that we associate with are or that we're friends with and, kind of similar mindsets and the similar line of things,
Right.
but
which again, and you can kind of think about it in the terms of religion again, is not to say that you're like, oh, sorry, I only hang out with people who think like this. That's the cult. But it's just that the more time you spend in it, those people emerge as resources for you. And the network builds through that. Like, oh, this is the guy I get milk from. This is the guy I get beef from. This is the gal I get chickens from, and then they become your friends because you see them all the time. So kind of creates its own circle there.
Yeah, and that's another hard issue is having community with when you live this lifestyle, because there's not very many people doing it anymore, and I find I get a lot of more pushback than I do support.
Really?
Of like, what? Yeah, why are you putting so much on your plate? Why are you doing all this with like your little kids? And why don't you just get rid of the milk cows? And like all those things have occurred to me and crossed my mind, but I'm also like, why is there so many people who don't want to, like, who prioritize other things? Because it's all comes down to what you're prioritizing.
When you're like, why don't you quit your job?
Like, why don't you do it with me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't you prioritize this and like realize that what we're feeding our children at this age is setting them up for life? And that's the other thing where it's hard for me, because I know that these are like very important years for like brain development and growth and all that, and teeth, and so I definitely prioritize it. And my husband sometimes doesn't even understand. Like, he's telling me right now, he's like, it's time to dry up the cows.
He's like, I'm over it. Oh, yeah, but I told you
he's
too,
not even doing it.
Like, I think I said to you, like, well, if the cow or the farm or anything were to come between you guys or me and Gary or something, it's like, get rid of it. Like, it would go.
Yeah.
Just because, like you said, there's things that are more important, or there's other ways to get it if you need to. But in a way, for you and me, it's like, well, if we're prioritizing eating this way, then if you get rid of all those things, now you and me need to get a part-time job to pay for the increased cost of buying this from someone else.
Yeah.
All that shit.
Yeah, that, and I'm also like, what? Yeah, I know. I'm sure there's like a million other things I could do though, because I'm always like, well, then what would I do? I always wonder what other people do.
Like, what are other moms but see, that's not doing? Their price, so we can't do that. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm sure they're all equally busy, but they just have different ways of raising their children.
Totally.
And, like, I have a friend in Washington who homeschools her kids, and I've like gone to her as my mentor for so many things in parenting. And she's like very scheduled and organized, and she actually had a stroke during a surgery, so she was like partially paralyzed and been healing and recovering from that. So she's got a ton going on, and she doesn't have a farm or any of that stuff, but she is super busy, and she's like doing a great job raising her kids. So it's like there are definitely different versions of how we spend our time and prioritize our time, but yeah, I do sometimes I do wonder that. I'm like, what do other people do?
What is your... Hey there, thank you for being a listener of the Ancestral Kitchen podcast. It means so much to Allison and I when you post a review on Apple or Spotify, or share about the podcast in your stories, or send us a message and let us know what it means to you, which is hopefully something good. You can also sponsor the podcast through our Patreon account and help Rob buy weird gadgets to edit out my coughs and microphone bumps in the background. We have a variety of different levels you can choose from, and a bunch of different benefits you can enjoy, ranging from additional interviews to video content and downloadable goodies. Check it out at patreon.com/ancestralkitchenpodcast. By the way, I looked up just now, what do you call Chev from a goat? I mean, from a cow.
And yeah, you looked it up.
It said, like, bovra.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Yeah. Something like bover or something like bovine. So I was like, oh, because they're bovine. But goats and cows are both from the
Bovidae family. So I don't know where the chef comes from.
You would know something like that.
Somebody trying
what family they come from.
somebody trying to sound French. I have some Bovidae cheese. Yeah, I
that's
know.
funny.
We each have these weird little obscure informations, don't we? Okay, I'm gonna do a few rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
Top way to eat liver.
Top way to eat it?
Like your favorite for you specifically.
Pate, if I'm gonna
Okay.
eat it cooked.
Mm-hmm.
But I usually just do it raw and swallow it.
And you cut chunks, like a biggish chunk that will last you maybe 3 days in the freezer and cook them on a sheet pan or
yeah, I freeze them.
Okay.
I freeze them and then and then I just pull out a steak and cut it up. But usually the twins love liver, and so I'm usually giving most of it to them.
Cooked or raw?
So I just cut out raw. They eat it. Like I give it to them partially frozen, and then they just like chewing on it and stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Lila swallows it now.
Oh, good for her.
She does it with, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we do it.
Favorite thing to make out of raw cream?
Butter.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Butter and sour cream.
Yeah. Favorite thing to make out of skimmed milk?
I make that chev out of it, actually.
What's your favorite?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yogurt.
Yeah. Top ferment veg-wise?
Sauerkraut.
Favorite fermented drink?
Kombucha, probably.
Is there an organ you don't love working with?
The spleen's pretty gross.
Taste-wise or working with wise?
Taste-wise. Oh, actually tongue. I just did tongue for the first time and I was like, well, it was the smell. After I like cleaned it and boiled it and all that, it had this distinct smell. It tasted okay, probably.
Yeah, I feel like
and then the next day, the next day though, I'm milking the cows and one of them was breathing over my shoulder. And I was like, what is that familiar smell? And I was like, oh my gosh, it's her tongue. It was so weird. I was like, I know what that is.
Have you cooked or eaten brain?
I have not. I want to try that next though, but Ashton wasn't into figuring out how to harvest it this time.
I mean, all good. Fair enough. Favorite hot drink after you've been outside doing chores?
I'll have either broth or I'll warm up some milk with egg yolk and some honey.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Make like a little steamer situation.
And last question of the interview. What is your hope for the future of your farm?
I don't really know. I hope that we can continue to grow, and I don't think we'll ever have a ton of cows or anything like that. I think we'll probably just stay small scale to support our own needs. But I don't know. I hope my kids like it. I hope my kids don't run for the hills as soon as they're old enough. I hope that they come back and want to be a part of it. I think this is our forever property, but being married to Ashton, I never know. There's threats of selling out and buying a sailboat. He's like, let's just sell this place. You know how much this place is worth now? Let's just sell it and buy a sailboat. We could retire. I'm like, I don't know.
I love the way he thinks. It's so awesome. So impulsive.
Yep.
I love that.
So hopefully be here though.
Yeah, I love it. This is freaking awesome, Amanda. I hope that we get to do this again. I mean, you and me need to do this whether we're recording it or not, because it is kind of fun to talk to more than 60-second intervals.
Yeah, I know.
Awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to throw out here? Can you also tell us where we can find you online?
I'm on Instagram, and that's about it.
Okay, what's your Instagram?
Keeping my whole 300 followers on lock. I think it's Amanda K. I don't even know.
I
Is
just
that
read it like
bad?
Mandak. I mean,
I think it's Manda A.K. Callahan.
it's
or something
Amanda
like that.
K _Callahan, I think.
Yeah, I don't
I'm gonna go
know.
look right
I
now.
think I was trying to be clever and throw in an AK for Alaska, and my middle name is Catherine.
Hey, righto. Yes, Amanda K _ Callahan. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes too. I can put Ashton's in there too. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. That's been really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, until next time, I'm gonna stop recording and it'll be good.
Okay. I'll see you later.
All right. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. We'd love to continue the conversation. Come find us on Instagram. Andrea's at Farm and Hearth and Allison's at ancestral_kitchen. Until next time, we both wish you much fun, exploration, and satisfaction in and out of the kitchen.